Recording in progress.
What's the last? There. All right. Welcome to Pacific Hackers, our March meeting. Rod is still in Florida, and Marco is out and about, so you have me. If you don't already know, we're a 501c3, a nonprofit who is doing its best to get the word out, to get more people in, to educate folks in the world of cyber, giving tools. We have our meetup. A big note, we are not here next month because the whole gang's gonna be out at RSA. So if you have it in your calendar for whatever reason, remember to strike that out because you won't find us here. Pictures from our last conference. That was a lot of fun. It's coming back again in November. I don't yet know when Rod and Marco are going to put out the call for papers and presentations. I suggest that you do it. Doesn't matter if it's a topic that's already been done before. It's all about the experience, being up here, talking to people. It's all good stuff. We have a bunch of partners and the list just keeps on growing. So that's cool. We've teamed up with OWASP a number of times already. They're a fun game. Like I said, next month we're going to be out at the Dark Arts Village. If you just so happen to go to RSA, you'll find us in the sandbox under Dark Arts. We had for a while the call for presentations, but that closed. We've been at DEF CON a number of times and one last. Highly suggest going if you've never gone before. We do build teams and train up and then go play. If you've never been to DEF CON, why? It's Las Vegas. Besides Vegas, it's a whole lot of fun just to hang around your peers and hack all the things. And as with any nonprofit, we need help spreading the word. Because this program just doesn't just grow automatically, it grows by word of mouth. There was supposed to be a lightning talk, but she's running late, so we're gonna push her to the end. And this person never showed up, so she's gonna skip right through to our main talk. But Lennon, you know with me, I'm efficient.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get out of the way and let you connect. And share screen. Lennon needs no introduction. He's awesome.
Okay. I think I can use share, right? Like I don't need the actual cable. Probably.
I mean, we can see it from the TV.
You know, if I share my screen.
Okay. Because you know, Zoom is the best tool ever. Ta-da.
I guess everybody can see now, right?
Cool.
Okay. Okay, let's get started. So the talk for today is gonna be chatbots for cybersecurity. As Irving already introduced me, my name is Lane Alevsky. I currently am working as a security software engineer. I also have contributed in a couple of open source projects here in the Bay Area. I have worked in the past in big companies and small companies. I enjoy both. And the thing I love the most is the cybersecurity part. I think it's something that allows you to experiment and grow and always stay curious. So I really enjoy cybersecurity. The agenda for this talk is going to be, first of all, I'm going to give a small introduction about what chatbots are and LLMs. Then I'm going to talk about how I have been using chatbots in the past few months, like to integrate them in my workflows, some interesting things that I have discovered about them, some good things, some bad things. And then we are going to talk about some real cases of how people are using them for defensive security tasks and offensive security tasks, and then some final thoughts. So with that, well, first of all, a disclaimer. All the opinions in this talk doesn't reflect the opinions of my current employer or future employees. So all of this is based on personal experience, my own opinions. Come on, this is a cybersecurity meetup, so we're gonna talk about things that may be seen as unethical sometimes, but I'm not encouraging anybody to go and do bad things. All of this is about learning together, growing, and getting more, for the experience, right? So yeah, for the past couple weeks or months, probably all of you have noticed there has been a rising trend in tech, in IT, about like chatbots, right? And artificial intelligence and machine learning, and how all these big companies are releasing new products, new features, integrating, like developing new tools. And everybody's talking about that, right? But I feel like sometimes we are like using some of these terms exchangeable, and I think it's good to kind of go one step back and go back to the basics. So all these, I will call them AI systems. Like whenever they release, for example, ChatGPT, I will call them an AI systems, and they have generally two components. So the first one, I will call it the chatbot. So chatbots is a technology that has been around for a long time. And they are basically, or the first one, they will be basically a bunch of ifs, or they will have a kind of set of pre-trained questions and answers. So you have used, for example, WhatsApp for business or Facebook for business, things like that. You can kind of program a very basic chatbot. But nowadays, like these companies are releasing these new UIs that allow people to interact with the chat, with AI, with the AI technology using a user interface. And the important part about this is that most of the time chatbots, the scope of the chatbot is limited to a very specific number of tasks, and they may not work very well if you try to do something outside of scope, right? So just for example, for the sake of calling this the front, I will call it the front end, right? Which is the main tool the user used to interact. And then in the back end, we will have the large language model, or the LLM. So large language model, they are a type of neural networks that they are trained with a huge amount of data. And the main purpose, or where they really shine, at least for these particular use cases, is in trying to predict the next token or the next word. So yeah, in comparison, like most of these large language models, they are consumed by other applications. Most of the time they are APIs or they are services, and they are not supposed to be used directly by humans. Like instead you integrate them in your programs or with your SDKs, or you consume them via an API. So that will be like the main difference. Both of these components, they together form what I call the AI system, or the complete like AI solution. And for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to give all the examples using ChatGPT, which was the tool that was available at the time I did this presentation like a couple months ago. So if you have following the news, like AI has advanced like in the past few weeks, like whenever they scheduled this talk, my presentation was already outdated. So I need to go back and update it. But most of the examples that I have, I use it with ChatGPT using specifically the GPT-3 language model. So all this still works, like there are some tweaks that you have to do. But even with all of that, like if the description is not very clear, the cool thing is that you can, right now you can still go and ask ChatGPT, what's a chatbot and what's a large language model, right? And it's gonna give you a pretty good answer. So this is the first way that you can use chatbots, right? To try to understand more things. You can use in natural language. You can go to the application, to the chatbot and start asking questions, just as you will ask to any other person in the room. So after that, like ChatGPT was released in November, if I remember correctly. So there was a lot of hype in social media, like people start using it for cybersecurity. And I started thinking some ideas on how can I leverage this technology to kind of make my work easier. So the first thing that I realized is that I can use it for learning, right? I can use it like we as cybersecurity people, we always constantly trying to learn new concepts. There is always new technologies. So it's a never ending task. By that time, I was preparing other talk about cryptography, about like explaining the difference between symmetric and asymmetric cryptography. And this talk was supposed to be targeted to students. Would you know that cryptography is a hard topic, right? There is a lot of math involved, statistics, things like that. And I was having trouble kind of simplifying some the concepts without losing actual like important parts. So I just directly go to ChatGPT and I ask, can you explain symmetric encryption to a 5-year-old, right? And it gave me a pretty good answer. Like it gives you some metaphors, some things that I think an actual 5-year-old will is useful for them, right? I also got an answer for a computer science student that was my target audience at the time. And also you can get the same answer, but kind of shape it for computer or for software engineer, right? People that is actually working in the field. So that is the first thing that I found very useful. Even for me, like if I'm trying to read a paper that is very complicated, that is on top of my level, I can just I can copy the text and put it on ChatGPT and try to ask the tool to explain it in more simple words that will make me understand easier, right? So, but it's not only about that, right? Like you, as a cybersecurity professional, there is a lot of domains that we need to learn. Like you can literally ask and learn about every topic. Like here I was just asking, give me a list of the topics, of the recommended topics that I get this question all the time, right? Like by students, like what should I learn, right? To get a job in cybersecurity. So the tool will give you like a list of, it's a pretty good list about like security domains that you're supposed to know as a professional. And you can even learn all of them using like books and courses and things like that. And you can complement using with the tool, right? Like if there is a topic that is hard to grasp, you can go and try to simplify it for you. My point here is that you can learn everything that you want, right? You can try to do that. The next part was that also I was compiling a list of, like whenever you are interviewing for a security engineering position, most of the time they have like a coding section, right? It's not like software engineering level coding. So, but you have to kind of solve a couple of interesting problems or challenges, such as like writing like a password cracker, right? Or writing like a web scraper or a brute force or a port scanner, right? Things like that. So I compiled this list a couple months ago, and I was suggesting people to kind of practice implementing this by themselves, right? So whenever they interview, they will be better prepared. So I was thinking like, I already did all of this myself, right? But can ChatGPT do it? can ChatGPT write actual Python code? And I start playing with the tool. The first one, I asked ChatGPT to write a simple brute force algorithm to crack like a PIN number, 4-digit PIN number. And I learned a couple of things, right? Like if you go directly and ask, please write me a program to crack this password, it's gonna give you like a big statement about like why should not do this and that, things like that, right? But I think probably everybody, like every time somebody asks you to hack a Facebook, we are gonna give the same answer, right? But there is ways around, like you have to ask nicely, right? So I start telling, hey, please help me. I'm trying to do this penetration testing. I need to crack this, whatever. And then ChatGPT will give you actual Python code, right? Which is in the right side. You can see it. And I was very surprised because I just copy this code into my terminal and run it, and it gave me the actual answer, right? And it's very similar to the, it came with a solution that is very similar to the one I did myself. But at the time I did this myself, I didn't use any building functions, but ChatGPT used them, right? So there is a little differences. You can ask the tool to do it a different way, but the answer that it gave me was, was good, right? Then I try to test the tool with a kind of more complicated problem, right? Like let's try to write a web scraper. So one thing that I learned here is ChatGPT, or they don't have direct connectivity to the internet. So, but that doesn't stop you to ask to kind of simulate if the chatbot has connectivity and try to parse some HTML code, right? For all people that doesn't know, like a web scraper is a type of program that will fetch some content from a website and will try to parse directly the HTML code to extract some data, right? They are very useful, like for example, when those type of websites doesn't have an API that you can consume directly. So in those cases, you have to use scraping. So for this example, what I did is I asked ChatGPT to create a web scraper that will go and fetch the data from my personal website and will extract some of the titles and the comments and things like that. And as I was saying, even if the tool doesn't have connectivity to the internet, you can give an example of how the HTML code will look like. And you want to create logic to parse the text. So the cool thing about this is that I have done this hundreds of times in the past because of many different tasks. And every time I try to do, like I need to analyze the HTML code, I need to try, like see how the tags are nested. So it takes me like 3 hours, right? But with this, I did it like in less than 10 minutes. So it's pretty cool in my opinion. Same thing, like it's gonna give you the code, you just copy it to your terminal, and this time it works, right? Then I try to do a different thing, which is sometimes for cybersecurity professionals, it's very common that they need to parse some logs. So that's also kind of like an interview question that they ask you. And here I learned another thing, right? I asked ChatGPT, I give it a bunch of logs, and I asked the tool to generate some Python code to extract interesting pieces of information. So by default, the tool tried to use regex, which didn't work. Like it keeps giving you like some output that was wrong, and it keeps trying to use regex, right? So at some point I told ChatGPT, don't use regex, instead try to parse the data by columns, and it did that and worked, right? So what I learned is that sometimes the tool, the thing with these large language models is that they are trying to give you an answer. Doesn't matter if the answer doesn't work, because they get penalized by don't give you like an answer, right? So they are going to try you to give any answer, even if that doesn't work. So you have to put some constraints to make it work yourself, or in the case of code, you will end having to do a small tweaks, right? But these errors, I will make it myself in the path, right? So it's not very different. But anyways, the parser works at the end, and it didn't use regex. Instead, it separated the strings by columns, and it works. Yeah, this is an example. Like on the right side, it's giving me the IP addresses and the IP address and the resource that the client requests.
Okay.
And the last thing that I did with ChatGPT after testing all these small kind of silly challenges, I say, okay, let me try to use the tool on a complex project now, right? So I have a blog, a personal blog that I have it since 15 years ago. Probably I started before college, and the original architecture that I used was based on very old LAMP stack, which is like Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, and it has been on my backlog for years to migrate that to a more modern architecture using containers and fancy technologies and things like that, right? So I wanted to do it. I want to do this since 3 or 4 years ago, but I never have the time, and I have been going back and forth thinking how much time it's going to consume me to do all this migration. And I came with something like probably like a month, like 4 weeks, like because the original website is a WordPress blog, so everything is in a database. I need to parse the content, I need to export the content, and then I want to get rid of the database. I want everything to be static, so I want to convert everything to Markdown, and then create a bunch of automations, create a pipeline, a CI/CD pipeline, things like that. Guess what, right? A couple weeks ago, I started working on this, creating all the automation, all the Git productions, all the Docker container files, doing all the parsing from HTML to Markdown using ChatGPT. And guess what? Like, in how many times did I complete the migration? Anybody has an idea? I did it on a weekend. So originally I was targeting for a month, but I was able to migrate the whole blog, multiple websites that I have in just a weekend, right? ChatGPT helped me with the parsing, with creating the actions, things like that, right? So this is when I saw how the technology really shines. Like, if you already have the idea of what has to be done, you just need to ask the right questions, right? Sometimes you're gonna get answers with some errors. That's fine. You can fix that, right? And you can iterate and you can finish the project. So yeah, I wrote an entire blog post about how I did it, and this is why I'm mentioning here even like the architecture, how it was before, how it's now. So, but yeah, like all these have been like personal experiences that I have, or things that I have been playing with the tool. Then I start thinking and asking other people, like security professionals actually working in the industry, what they do on their day-to-day, right? And all of these you can use chatbots as a support tool for you to be more productive, or for you to get a bunch of work done. Let's say you are trying to configure some operating systems, like let's say a Debian system, or CentOS, or Ubuntu, and want to do some hardening. You can ask the tool to give you the commands that you need to run. For people that work with containers and cloud, this thing can also give you recommendations, or can give you like Docker files that has secure configurations, things like that. Cloud security, most of the time people use different clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP, things like that. you can use this tool to give you what are the recommended or the best practices, right? To deploy your workloads there. Application security as well, everything that has to do with protecting the actual product, making sure the code is safe. I have seen people use it. We're going to see an example in a couple of minutes about how to use them to analyze malware and how to kind of use it as a sandbox to analyze payloads without actually running the code yourself. People that works in security engineering tasks, like for example with SIEMs, you can ask the tool to generate SIEM queries for Splunk, Sentinel, Elasticsearch, pretty much every tool that is in the market, right? But also the people from red teaming are also leveraging these tools in the way of, they are, for example, I enjoy playing CTFs and also creating them. So you can create actual vulnerable code. And if you try to create a CTF in the past, you will agree with me how difficult it is to write insecure code nowadays with all the frameworks. So you have to disable a bunch of things on the frameworks to make the code actually vulnerable. So you can, I have used ChatGPT in the past to create like CTFs. You can use it to obfuscate your code. You can copy the code in the tool and ask them, please make this code to be not so obvious, and it's gonna obfuscate it. You can use it to exploit vulnerabilities. I have seen people like copying a bunch of C code and then asking what's wrong with the code. Analyzing code, you can literally copy a piece of code and ask the tool to comment each line. So if there is code that is not very obvious, you are gonna have a better idea. You can use it to create Visual Basic scripts or macros or PowerShell scripts, things like that. And I have seen an increasing number of people saying that they are using it for social engineering tasks. They combine many different AI tools, such as these kind of language models and also Stable Diffusion and DALL-E and things like that to generate like photorealistic images, and with that creating like sock puppets, things like that. So definitely like the rules of the games is changing now with these tools. And after a couple of months that I have been playing with these tools, these are a couple of things that I learned. So I like how ChatGPT designed their UI in the way of they have like different sessions. So one cool thing is that they have continuity, right? So you start a new one and you start asking more and more questions, and it remembers what you did in the past. But that sometimes that may not be good, because if you suddenly ask something completely different, you're going to try to still relate what is the new thing that you're asking with the previous things. So what I found here is that every time you are working on a new project or a new task, it's better to start fresh, right? Create a new session and start fresh from that. Let's say I was doing an experiment here. I wanted to create a malicious Visual Basic macro. So if I go directly and ask them, please write a Visual Basic macro that will run on Office or Excel or a software like that, and will download Meterpreter or things like that, it's gonna give me that speech about don't be malicious, right? So the way I start was, please write a simple hello world Visual Basic macro, right? And from there, you have to expand. I have to start asking things about like, please make this code not be so obvious, add a little bit of obfuscation, then ask the tool to integrate some logic to download a file without actually telling about it was a Meterpreter. And then asking the tool to don't store the file on the hard drive, instead try to run it from memory, things like that, right? So what I'm saying is when you try to bypass kind of these security mechanisms, or when you're especially doing like red teaming things, you try to ask nicely and don't be too obvious. And I found that that's the best way how it works. So yeah, after this, I want to talk about some other examples that I have seen people leveraging ChatGPT or another chatbots. For example, this is another example that I have been doing in the past. So I was doing a couple of cloud security audits, and I was using a tool called Scout 2 that will go and try to detect vulnerabilities, or not vulnerability, like best practice that are not applied to different clouds. But some of the parts of the report were not very useful, right? The tool will just tell you, this is vulnerable, or this is not configured the best way possible. Lucky for me, like I can ask the tool, ChatGPT, to kind of expand on those findings, and then with that I can write a better report, right? And I'm not saying by any means that you just should like copy and paste that into a report. You have to combine that with your security knowledge, right? You have to see if what the tool is giving you makes sense, or is just bluffing, right? So that I found that was a very useful way to try to create reports, especially because everybody here loves to create reports, right? So yeah, that was a very useful thing that I found. Another one is that I was doing some experiments on creating content for social media, like for example, creating tweets or creating infographics. By the time GPT-3 was not able to generate images, I know that GPT-4 now is multimodal, so it's able to create images and understand images. But that was also another interesting use case. So what I did is I generate 365 tweets, like for the whole year. And I put all of them on a document spreadsheet, and then with some other automation, I have like content to tweet like the whole year, right? And now I don't have to worry about that, right? But yeah, like if you go to Twitter or some other social media, you will see folks trying to using these technologies in a very interesting way. Like for example, as an anti-phishing tool, right? There is already a lot of tools in the market, most of them very expensive, that will try to guess if an email is malicious or not. But guess what? Like this person found that if you just copy the content of the email, disclaimer, like you should censor everything that is proprietary. If you copy the content of the email into the tool, ChatGPT will give you a good guess about if this may be malicious or not, right? It will be a phishing email or a legit email. And by the way, all of these you can, they already have an API, so you can build applications around that. So yeah, similar people is using it for malware analysis. So we all know that reverse engineering is a hard topic, but they are using these tools to kind of support them during their task, to the point that now there is even like some integration, right? Like somebody wrote a Jira integration, a Jira plugin, and they are connecting directly the tool Jira directly to the API of ChatGPT, right? This is a joke, it's supposed to be a joke. But somebody asked them, like, please write a code about my company got breached, but in reality, I don't care, right? And the answer that the chatbot give you was like one of those pretty generic emails that we get every time a company gets hacked. Like, yeah, we are, we are apologies for the inconvenience, we are working on that, things like that, right? So yeah, you can use it to write emails. Well, yeah, the cool thing is that this topic is about security, but chatbots are not used about IT and security, right? You can literally use them to ask about everything. For example, for cooking, like it can give you like a recipe list and the instructions and things like that. This is a couple more ideas. You can use it for marketing campaigns, to writing emails, to summarize articles or enhance essays. Nowadays, every time I publish, I'm working on a blog post. When I'm done with that, because I don't want ChatGPT or this tool to write the blog post for me, because that's an activity that I actually enjoy to do. But once I'm done with that, I just give it to ChatGPT to try to make some enhancements and improvements. So that's another way that you can use it. For planning weddings, like I was helping a friend to plan his wedding, and we started using the tool. For sales pitch, and also for studying and practicing for exam, right? So a couple weeks ago, I was working on preparing myself for a certification. So I literally asked the tool for help to quiz me on some of the questions, and it was pretty good. It was like asking and I was responding, and it's gonna give me, yeah, this answer is good, or this answer is missing this, or things like that, right? You can use it to improve your learning. And yeah, like these are some final thoughts, some reflects that I did about after using the tool. So chatbots are definitely very powerful tool, chatbots and large language models. You can use it definitely to enhance your productivity. You can get way more work done if you use one of these. So it's very useful if you already have some domain knowledge of the topic that you are asking for, because I have asked some other questions, like I have cousins that work in the healthcare industry, things like that. They were asking things to the chatbot, and I really didn't understand any of the answers, right? Because I'm not a physician, right? But I understand about security and technology. So if you already have knowledge of what you are asking, this is what I see where the technology really shines, right? You can use it as a personal consultant, as a personal, a person that will give you answers. Sometimes it may produce code that doesn't work. I will say 7 out of 10 times it gives me good code. The other 3 ones, it has a couple of mistakes, but that's fine, because those will be errors that I will make myself. So it was not really different, right? And if you know how to code, you know what you are doing, it's very easy to spot the problem and fix it. So yeah, the chatbot still requires some human analysis to make corrections and tweaks. And the last one is probably every chatbot website will tell you this, but from time to time, it may produce harmful or biased information responses that are incorrect. And this is because of the training data, right? If the data set the chatbot used to get trained contains biases, most probably some of the answers are going to contain biases as well. Here are the resources that I use for this presentation. And with that, if you have any question, if you have any follow-up questions, comments, I'm happy to answer that. Thank you so much.
The slides be available.
Yes, we're gonna share the slides. What question over there?
Yeah, I came in a little bit late, so you share how you cybersecurity using malware nonsense and whatnot. So you actually have to upload the data, right? So how do you handle the privacy concern if you upload? It's like when you're using what's that, Google the one you upload. So you share that will point back, oh, so and so upload the first malware load for analysis. How do you protect the privacy of what you're going to upload in order to get the information?
Yeah, so there is right now there is no directly on the chatbot, there is no tool that automatically will censor or block what you are uploading. So I was mentioning that please be very careful to what you are uploading. Like if you share, for example, an email and there is actual private content on that email, you are sending it to OpenAI, right? Which is the tool. So all the experiments that I did, or when I was actually working on my actual project about the migration, if there was some scripts that contains like API keys, things like that, I will remove all from the script, right? I will not send passwords or sensitive data to the tool. Instead, I'm just going to replace it with an X or any other character. So as last time I checked, like they don't have like a method for you to or they are not telling you like how they are protecting the data that you are input in the prompt. So I will suggest that, like, please don't share anything that is proprietary or sensitive, because we don't know if the information is stored in a secure way, or they are used. We don't know what they are doing with that information. Right?
So just making sure you sanitize the data.
Yes, yeah, just make sure you are sanitizing the data, you are not sharing anything sensitive or anything private with your own company, and use common sense.
The other follow-up, sorry, do you see a lot of company blocking OpenAI jumping on there?
That's interesting.
It's a new technology, right? So
Yeah.
you can really control what you can upload, right?
Yes.
Even you have the DLP protection or sanitize, but nothing content is a
Yeah.
confidential information per se. So you see that trend is currently being blocked on the
Of the actual tool, the domain. I haven't heard of any company actively blocking. I hear about some college and schools for kids not to cheat on their tasks, on their assignments. They are blocking the tool, right? But I think that's a more deeper conversation. Like, I think we are still like in a very early days about these technologies, and there has to be like some agreement on how you can use it, because if these tools used correctly, they can enhance like the productivity of the company, right? But there has to be like some good practices, some guidelines, things like that.
So you mentioned learning with ChatGPT. Do you see any concerns? It can give you wrong answers and you learn something wrong.
Yes. So yeah, like that's what I was saying. Like, it's better, but I will say it's required that you have some knowledge domain of what you are asking, because otherwise the tool will be lying to you and you will not know, right? And these tools, I'm not an expert on machine learning, things like that, but I know that most of these language models, they are penalized if they prefer giving you a wrong answer than not giving you an answer, right? So they will follow that. They will chase giving you whatever, even if it's wrong. And that's when you have to know about what you are asking, to tell the tool, no, you are lying to me, right? Or this thing that you are giving me is not correct. So yeah, you need to have some knowledge of it. There was another question.
So I've been using the tool for quite a while now, and every time I ask a question, it says that the data is from September 2021. That's what they say, but they still take the data. So one thing I've experienced, and looking at your slides, is you're doing kind of similar things to what I've done. So what I experienced was that you ask a question, it will never give you the straight answer from the first. It wants you to learn what your approach. So you ask 5 or 6 times, step by step. You ask it, okay, I'm getting some error in the code. So give me exception, put in a try catch or something like that. So it will do that. Now, one thing I've realized that if I ask the same question after a week, it will have the exact answer what I'm looking for from the first.
Yeah.
Like, at the first answer.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, like, normally when we do coding and when we do our work, we keep at it. We don't stop till we get the thing. But in this case, since we are not the only person asking this, there might be some other people also across the globe. And it's learning, even though the data set is old, it's still learning from all our inputs, from your input, my input. So should we just ask it a few questions, then hold back, go after a week, open a new session, ask the same shit again, and get the exact thing what we want? What are your thoughts? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like that happens to me a couple of times in the past. I thought it was because it has continuity, but I saw that it will work even on a new session, right?
Right.
And OpenAI, last time I checked, they are GPT-3. They said that they don't have. I think they have information only until 2021, right? You say so they are supposed not to be adding or retraining the model, but that's my guess. Like if we're experiencing something like this, they may be retraining the model with new answers. So probably that's what is
I think
happening.
that's scraping from, like they haven't scraped for the whole, like doing the whole basic training, but a lot of it they have been adjusting based on. That's why you have like the option to tell when it's wrong, so they can learn from that.
Yeah.
So it's like we're learning from what we're doing, not scraping the whole.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's one other thing I noticed was like whenever you open ChatGPT on the browser, at the bottom it says data as of February 13, 2023, February 14. So that might be the updating that
They are
they're doing.
retraining the model.
Yeah.
And,
So based on our inputs instead of the scraping part. So okay. Nice.
yeah, they probably keep training the model with new data and also with user input, right? And yeah, they have that functionality so you can thumbs up and down, like if an answer is good or bad.
The dilemma is that like what I face is that should I keep at it or should I just sit back, relax after a week, ask the same question again and get my answer that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, one idea is ask all the questions that you have, then go on PTO 2 weeks and come back. And,
Exactly. Right?
yeah.
Nobody in their right mind would do it, but for example, could you put a program or not, could you put a bunch of code in a program and say, please fix my code, something to that effect? Is it that sophisticated?
Yes, I will say it depends on the complexity, but you can put like a Python script and ask the chatbot to rewrite it using like best practices, what comments. There is plugins now, like you can integrate it directly with Visual Studio Code and select a bunch of code. Ask IDEs already have this technology from years ago, but now you can generate test cases using the chatbot. So I will say for functions or scripts, not like entire projects, because also like the UI, they restrict to, I think it's a maximum of 2,000 characters. But you can definitely.
You mean data that you can enter?
Yeah, the data that you can enter, I think they restrict to 2,000 characters, or it was being AI, one of those. But you can, like, let's say a Python script, you can directly input in there and ask them to enhance the code. And it's gonna give you good answers, probably.
So on the other side of the coin, for example, could you put, let's say, some word code, or I mean, section of Word and have it backwards. What do you call it? My brain shuts down when I need it most.
No, but you're saying put some code and then ask them to make it look ugly, or?
Yeah, you put some assembly code in and say,
Oh,
what's the code for this?
oh yeah, like giving assembly and generating C++. I never tried that, but I've seen people using it for malware analysis, so I'm assuming this may be possible. I mean, there is tools already doing that, like Jidra and things like that. So probably the tool can do that. I don't know how accurate it will be, but if the assembly is basic, kind of basic, maybe it's gonna give you like the right answer. And actually, that's something that is kind of hard to do, right? Like to understand and learn assembly, and then look at the assembly and try to imagine how the C code will look is something that takes time. But this tool gives you this chatbot gives you the tool to do that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that GitHub has that function that's integrated. Where you could actually, help you write the code.
Yes, they have a Copilot, right?
Yeah, Copilot. Now there's a Copilot X.
Copilot.
This stuff is changing so much. I mean, every
Yeah.
week there's something coming out that's different.
I hear a joke about people saying that instead of Copilot, they should call it like the whole crew and the staff. Because yeah, the tool is amazing. So it's,
I mean, in your experience, what's like the most egregious mistake that
for this one, for these tools, for these chatbots?
Yeah.
So actually, I was working with a friend that he's an expert in machine learning. If we can put together kind of like kind of WASP top 10 of large language models of people that they are abusing the tools in very interesting ways. But I would say the biggest mistake may be not knowing what you're asking, because then you will not know if the answer is right or wrong, right or wrong. And if you go, let's say your boss asks you to give a report about something and you don't really read the response and you give the report directly, and they start asking questions about that, you will not know what was in there, right? So I would say, yeah, please read every answer that the chatbot is giving you and just verify the information is correct.
Were there like any particular security concepts that it had a harder time? Like, conceptual understanding?
For security concepts, I haven't seen anything that maybe it may make mistakes from time to time. But I was watching a couple of YouTube videos about a professor from Stanford that she was asking some questions about quantum physics and things like that, like things that are like more complex. And the tool was having issues or was making like wrong generalizations about that. So I would say if probably you ask some topic about security that is very difficult, very complicated, the tool may do like generalization that doesn't apply all the time. But for what I have done, like how the answer has worked so far.
If you want to see some amazing failures, look at glitch tokens.
All the top, yeah.
The glitch tokens are
Yeah.
so awesome.
I saw a video. It was there is this YouTube channel called Computer File. Like they were inputting like a random token, and the response from the chatbot was like, "You're an idiot," and nobody knows what, right? And then they start understanding why. And one theory is that because these tools were trained using data sets, that is the entire internet basically, that there was a subreddit that is called numbers or counting or something like that, where people just literally count. They post one and then another one replay with 2 and then 3 and 4 and 5. And they are now in the order of millions. So all that information went into the chatbot, right? And it's trying to make sense of all of that. And there is some, that's an interesting, people are trying to see if that can be like an attack, like against LLMs, in which, yeah, like nobody knows if you enter, let's say you are entering like some question and suddenly you hit one of those glitch tokens and the whole answer is gonna be wrong, or it's gonna be something completely different. And if you input that into a system, let's say, like then something bad may happen, right? But that will be like glitch tokens. It's an interesting topic. If you want to investigate about that, I highly recommend.
So you looks like you used it a lot, and are you on free tier or you have to pay?
So I think they still have a free version that they release like ChatGPT Plus, which is something like $20 or $40 per month. But I have been using the free version and works pretty fine most of the time. Sometimes the server is overloaded, so you have to just click refresh, keep refreshing over and over again. But I read like whenever they release ChatGPT 4, they are going to start charging to use the API, and they charge you by the number of tokens. So for something like for every 1 million tokens, they will charge you a certain amount of data. And tokens, like by the way, it may be like a whole word or it may be just a character. So that's what they call tokens. And they will charge you based on that. There was another question.
Yeah, does it generate, let's say you have a piece of you have a function, and it generate for you a couple of unit tests?
Yes, you can generate unit tests for you. Yeah, like you can do that directly on the tool on the ChatGPT website, or you can use now there is plugins for Visual Studio Code and some other IDEs in where you literally select your code and then right click ChatGPT generate test, and it's gonna give you test cases for that.
I have one last one. So you mentioned the complex projects, right? and the LAMP structure and everything that we're trying to migrate. So, like in your experience, is this possible? Like, if a project, you can't have it in one session, or you can't have all the scripts. Like, it won't give you the straight answer right away. So you split into different modules. You ask one session for one part of the code, then the second session, and can you interact between the sessions? Is that something that you've tried?
I haven't seen a way to interact between the sessions. When I did that, I did only in one session, and I started using I start step by step. First, I can talk a little bit more about that. So what I did is I want to get rid of the database and convert everything into static code with a framework called Yugo. Yugo is a static website generator. So what I first did is I export everything from the database, like all the articles, and then back and forth, with ChatGPT, I generate a Python script that will take HTML and translate it to Markdown. And then after I have all the Markdown files, I was able to run a static website, right? But then I want to, in the past, every time I make a new article, I will go to the WordPress admin page and do it from that. Now I want to write only Markdown, and I want to push to a Git repository. And after that, I create some GitHub actions that will run tests and create a Docker container and publish that to Docker Hub. And then it's gonna call a webhook to, I'm using this tool called Portainer that will download the new image and restart the container. So I went step by step, right? Like first, do the parsing, convert, then creating the containerization of the website. And then I asked for help to create the GitHub actions. I even asked to create some Nginx redirect rules. And that was cool because I have a list of like 30 URLs that I need to convert from Spanish to English. And I just keep the entire list and ask ChatGPT, please convert this from Spanish to English, and then convert that to a Sloop version, and then create Nginx redirect rules for that. And boom, it gives me the whole thing.
So basically, it's like you reduce the workload for ChatGPT. You made it simpler so that it gets done by the tool.
Yes. Yeah. Because otherwise, I think it was too much. It's gonna be too much, right? Like
That's what I was
if
you can split it across, then that can build system.
Yeah. There was another question. Oh, yeah.
I'll ask one. So you mentioned it did particularly poorly with regex. To go back to the token discussion, is that something you've observed in general as a trend of, super information dense things that don't lend themselves to poor English page optimization, just really bad at, or is that sort of a one-off?
Yeah, I don't know. In this case, I just keep it keeps giving me like answers with regex, and they were wrong all the time. So I just got tired and told them, like, using natural language, like parse this line separated by spaces and tabs, and then get me the second column, things like that. And it gave me what I was asking for, right? But I didn't know why it has so much trouble with coming with the right regex, which is like, I know how to write regex, and that was not very complicated, right? But it just the tool was having trouble with that. And that may be because, as far as I know, these tools try to predict what is the right, or the most probably the right next token. So they need to have a lot of examples on their data set about regex to do a specific thing. So I don't know if the data set doesn't have the best data when it comes to regex or why. So it was just easier to parse with splitting columns and things like that. Yeah, I think Irving,
You're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Cool.
Unless anybody have any other question? Okay.
Okay, good. We have this room until 4, but I ain't gonna hold y'all hostage. So if you want to stick around and talk with each other, awesome. I mean, this is a great place to network with each other. But otherwise, we're done.
So both lightning talks are,
Yeah, is she here? Oh,
Oh, perfect.
is she?
Yeah, one more time.
Oh, we might actually have a lightning talk.
Nice.
So one thing, so you work at Google, right?
Maybe.
So when is Bard coming out? We all signed up for it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
can
we're still waiting for
sign, there is a wait list right
Right,
now.
that's what I'm saying. So when is the waitlist?
Yeah.
gonna-
I don't know.
I signed up last night, so.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Gmail. You had to
Yeah.
wait for the invitation for Gmail and
Yeah,
then there
I
was beta
remember that,
access.
like somebody has to invite you to get
Exactly.
a Gmail, right? Yeah. But there is also a wait list for being AI as well, and I have been playing with Llama, which is a Facebook Meta large language model. You can download it in your machine. They have different versions on size, on the number of parameters. Yeah, you can start playing with that one.
What about Whisper? Have you worked with Whisper?
No, what's that?
That's OpenAI's tool. They released it for sound processing. Instead of typing, you can just give it audio and it will respond.
Oh, that's good.
Actually.
Whispers open about.
Yeah.
We should move the camera.
They released it a month, like
The camera does
last
face-
September,
face right
but
here.
publicly announced it like last month.
Yes.
There's a good talk by the guy who did the Whisper CPP, on the CPP podcast. We talked about Courtney Wilbur, uses the Mac, in Harvard celebration. It's really fascinating in details of how it's built.
I'm gonna leave this on top.
Yeah. Meeting ID is 327. 341-327-6632.
You want us all to join that, right?
No.
So it's always zero.
Maybe in the meantime, I can ask you a few questions, since I'm Natalia, I'm a career and business advisor, and I would like to help you guys with your career development in my short lightning talk today. So I have a question. Who experiences some issues with their professional development at the moment, like layoffs, or you cannot take a decision where to go next, you'd like to change something, but you don't necessarily know which direction to go. Anyone?
That's always the case.
It's hard to repeat, right? It's one of the rules, I know. Looks like we're getting there. Yeah, so I know that 2023 is a bit of like a year of turmoil when a lot of people have those doubts, and yeah, we obviously also experience. Yeah, join.
You don't need to.
So it's a productivity revolution on one hand, but on the other hand, it's also a time of big uncertainty in the job market. So I'd like to help you a little bit with your career decisions today.
We'll have to share screen. Cool.
Perfect. Okay, so this will be a short presentation. And in my presentation, I'd just like to ask you a few, I call it like thought-provoking questions, and give you a few tips for how to make career decisions in 2023. as a software developer especially. So one question for you I have at the beginning of my presentation. What are the questions do you usually ask yourself while searching for a new job? Like new contracts, new employer, what type of factors are usually interesting to you? Anyone? Yes?
I want to know how flexible the processes are. Can you actually make a change, or are they just looking for somebody to?
Right. Okay, so how much autonomy, how much space for growth? Okay, cool.
I'm looking at the commute, how far it is from home.
Yes, that's very practical, very important, yes. Yes,
Day-to-day responsibilities, what do you want to do?
yeah, how much you have to do and yeah,
And what do you enjoy?
right, and your salary also reflects that, right? So,
Yes.
yeah. Anything else?
The challenge, if there is a opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Something else?
The culture,
The
the company culture.
company culture, very well, yeah, that's very important. Okay, so typically people say, well, which company, which team could I fit, which team could I fit in with my skills? What's the project about? Am I capable to do the project given my skills and experience? Also, this is actually a bit about, yeah, so shall I go for promotion or maybe a diagonal promotion or completely change a career path? So which type of like next step do I want to make? What's the salary? Do I need to relocate? Do I need to commute? And also, how long is my next contract? Is this going to be to just a temporal, like temporal improvement in my career development, or is this like a change for good? So these are like the typical concerns. But in fact, like one thing I'd like to pay attention to in this talk is like there is one more dimension which you also mentioned. So it's more about the culture, where you fit with your mentality, with your natural working style, with your personality traits. So where is the in the job market? There's like where's my tribe in the job market? Right? Where do I fit? Where do I feel like I'm understood? I feel I feel like I fit my group, and I get a positive vibe from people around me. Okay, so actually I was working a lot on how to help professionals navigate the job market, and after a few years of working on this topic, I developed a system in which I basically try to help people create their professional fingerprint or professional ID based on 3 pillars. So this is basically what defines you as a professional and helps navigate in this complex job market we have today. So one pillar is your natural way of building value for a team. So whether you are a type of a manager or specialist or creator or maybe an achiever who just inspires people, that's your edge. Or there are multiple different roles in which you can contribute to the team. The other one is your tribe. So in which environment, in which working environment, in which company are the people who are similar, who think similar to you and who share your values. And the third one is your core competencies, which is what are your natural talents? Because sometimes we like to make this, there's a major misunderstanding between skills and core competencies. Sometimes you spend 15 years in your professional life honing skills that you're not naturally talented for. And then you will never ever be like the top expert just because you spend a lot of time on it, you sweat, you put effort into learning certain skills. Like for me, it was actually programming. So I can program, but I know that this is like I'm naturally talented for writing, for other things. So so there's a big difference between skills and core competencies. So that's also what I help people do, discover the real talents and the real natural capabilities. So today I'll focus a little bit more on one of these pillars, namely on the tribe. Because as a matter of fact, you guys all can program, right? Like you're highly educated, you have a great skill in your hands. So you have a lot of options in the job market. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the tribes in the job market. So what is your landscape of opportunities? And now I will generalize and I'll try to simplify because the job market is huge and complex. But like just in simple terms, basically, what the trade-off is in your professional life is a trade-off between freedom and safety, right? So as a software developer, you have many different tracks to choose from, but this is the main question you have to ask yourself at the start. So do I choose for professional freedom at the cost of low safety, or do I choose for stability, safety at the cost of personal freedom? So one choice, actually, I come from academia. I did a PhD, and I was originally planning to become a professor of neuroscience. So for me, like the first choice was academia, and there are academic career paths that are available for you as well. So today, the onboarding of new PhD students actually looks much different from a decade ago. And the average age of onboarding in Europe is now at over 33 years old. So it becomes more often more popular that people at any career stage just decide to get on this career track and go for a grad school. So even if you already have a career developed in another field, you're also welcome to join academia if at some point in your life you feel like you want to fully focus on like extending the realm of human knowledge in particular area. So this is still open possibility. In academic jobs, the career starts from PhD, which is a type of a setting in which you have like relatively high degree of personal freedom compared to postdoc times, but it's in the middle, like middle range personal freedom and middle range stability, because at the end of the day you have a contract for a few years, and then it's not certain if you will proceed. So it's a few years guaranteed, but then anything can happen. So it's like a middle range. And then in the postdoc phase is quite hard life. So the low stability and low freedom. And then once you get to this happy corner, once you get the tenure position, then you are free to develop your own projects with people you prefer to work with. And you have at the same time stability. You have a guaranteed salary pretty much till the rest of your career until you really do something weird. So so that's the typical trajectory in academia. Then what we have is public sector, which is much more stable by definition, but at the same time highly regular, it's regulated and quite procedural. So you have to give up on vast majority of your personal freedom in professional life once you want to join private sector. Then we have like jobs in, I guess this is what most of the employees in the Bay Area go for. So working for private companies, and we have obviously like different types, like startups that are by definition a bit more like unstable or even much more unstable, but at the same time offer much more flexibility compared to corporations. In the middle, we also have consultancy companies and small to medium-sized companies, also known as SMEs. And then we have this like two paths that I think is a dream to most, or at least like large part of developers in the Bay Area. So freelancing and entrepreneurship, especially. And obviously, in this career, you can get to some level of safety with time. Once your company grows, once you develop a stable culture and have really good product market fit. But overall, it takes time. But this is possible. So in terms of stability, obviously you start from zero, but also as a freelancer, you can get to a certain level of stability when you build your personal brand and client base. So this is possible. It requires patience and consistency, but it's doable. So this is basically like just to show you that you have multiple choices, and this is the question you might be asking yourself first: what is more important to me, and how long am I willing to wait until I will be both safe and free? Okay, and this is generalization. So, like companies, every company has a different culture. You can expect that that there are not two like identical cultures. So this is a wide generalization, but I hope it's useful. And when you also correct for probability of success, because the previous picture, this is the ideal case. But obviously, it's not easy to become a successful entrepreneur, right? Most people fail. So for instance, and in academia, like not many people get to the tenure stage. So once you correct for the probabilities, then it turns out that entrepreneurship is like statistically the path with like that gives you the most personal freedom, but at the cost of the minimal safety, and vice versa. Like the government gives you the opposite. So this is a simplified picture to show you, and everyone has their own like range of like range in which they can function, right? So like I myself, I don't see myself on the left side of this landscape at all, just far right, but everyone has their own sensitivity. So it's just a question where you fit in this picture. And this is again a generalization, of course. And the take-home message number one is don't think in terms of what is career and what is not. So I know that here in Bay Area there is something like status, and it's really like there are these circles, right? So if you are a successful entrepreneur, then you're seen as the god, right? The godly figure that is worshipped. And then if you're a VC, you're like one level down. If you are a consultant like me, you're at the very bottom. You're like, you know, no status whatsoever. Maybe if I have a diploma from Stanford, it would be a bit better. But it's just there is a state, but like I don't like to think this way when I think about my career. It's just really I like to think, okay, where can I find a path where I'm best at what I do, and I don't really care like what the official status of that path is, because what does it mean to develop a career in 2023? It becomes, it basically, to me, it's synonymous from being good at what you do and being recognized for it. And it doesn't matter which career path you choose and what is your position title on LinkedIn. That completely doesn't matter. And secondly, when you apply for jobs, think about that if you suffer from rejections, you have to know that the recruiter's job is not to pick the candidate that has the most skill. They just want to find someone who fits the tribe. So sometimes you might be the best suited candidate in terms of skills. You might be the most like intelligent person out there who has the most experience, but sometimes they just use their gut feeling to tell, okay, is this person the best like missing puzzle in that particular team? And it is a human factor as well. So sometimes they have to use their guts to tell. And so sometimes, you know, it's just don't take it personally if you're rejected, because it might be just a gut feeling of the recruiter. And this is like a variable you cannot control. And how can I help you today? I will be very brief with this. And in the meantime, can anyone take a photo of me talking? That would be very nice if I can. Yeah, or from the back of the room it would be even better.
Oh, sure.
Because Instagram.
I have that.
Awesome.
Camera now.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, yeah. Isha is always. Thank you. You know, in the world of Instagram, like I have no choice. Like,
but you are very small if you want.
But the point is the people in the room. That's
Yeah. Okay.
I will clone you.
Yeah, tell me whoever you are not here.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, very quickly. Thank you. How can I help you today? So now that you might be thinking, okay, where do I go then, right? How do I make sure like where's my tribe in the job market? Where do people think like me? In the past like 2 years, I was working on my own method based on Alfred Adler's School of Psychology. And I don't want to get into details here, but basically what Alfred Adler was basically working on the same, he was working in the times of Sigmund Freud. It's just that his School of Psychology is just less known for some reason. But he believed that we are all value leaders and that we make free choices in our lives. We are not prisoners of our past. And also that our lifestyle defines us more than personality. So the way we make choices, it actually defines us. That's something that we should discover and consider. Anyways, here I have a comparison with Sigmund Freud and Carl Gustav Jung that were working more or less in the same times. I was working on the literature and source material from his work, and basically I developed a method where I basically sectioned all possible types of value builders into like 8 domains, and all the possible working environments also into 8 domains. And this is very like crude division, but this is like every model is wrong, but some models are useful. So I hope this is useful for you. It's just a very, very crude division of the job market into 8 different areas. And basically, the test I've built is based on 4 types of variables. One is your working style, then your type of mind, your relations with other people, and your values and beliefs. And basically what this test is returning is like 2 rankings. One is the ranking of your, like all of the roles in which you naturally create value. And the other ranking is the ranking of working environments where you naturally fit best. And basically what these numbers are showing are percentiles. So you can see where in the population you score. So it's a bit like a cheat sheet that shows you what is your competitive advantage in the job market. And together with this test, there are 2 books that will help you basically make best out of the results. And I normally, this is a product that I, my company kind of sells to institutions, but also individuals. But today I made you an access code, so you can just take a photo of this, and you have a month. So if you would like to take the test, you're free to do so. It's completely free for you. And so the instructions are very simple. So I'll show you access without a problem. So are there any questions? Yes?
So you mentioned everything about what you can do. But one thing I realized in the current job market, especially, that you have positions open, right? They tell you how much they pay you. But wouldn't it be nice if we know how much they actually make off of you? Then that determines if you are going to be a valuable asset to the company or not. And you don't have to worry about job security. You don't have to worry about being, because you're passionate about your work. But at the end, it's all about the numbers, right? The CEO's pay increases, but the layoffs keep on happening. So are they really not passionate? No, they are. Are they really not important? Maybe they are not today. But why didn't they realize it before? That they are not important today to the company. So the pay is given, but it wouldn't be nice if we know actually how much the company makes from each individual employee.
This is a very good point.
Is that something that we can figure out? Because they are not tell us. So
yeah, this is a very good point. So actually, there are, like, this is actually studied a lot in the like HR area, and the problem is that some positions in a company, their like value is easy to quantify. For instance, if you're in sales, then obviously like the value of your sales is your value for the company. So this is also why it's easier for salespeople usually to negotiate the salary, because they can just flash the numbers and say, hey, come on, I made like $1 million in sales and you pay me 100,000, right? Like this is ridiculous, and then it's like easy for them to argue. But with frankly, like the most of the employees typically are in those positions that are far from sales and far. For instance, if you work in the R&D department, you're part of a team that is just doing like running errands for other teams, or doing quality assurance. Like you don't really produce a new product, but you cannot really make that point clearly. You definitely have a role, but it's so hard to put it in numbers. So that's why there are some like market standards, right? So there is like a consensus that for a certain position with a certain degree of experience, we kind of agree, like as a society, or almost like as an industry in the society, that this is what it's worth. But as a matter of fact, if your company is highly efficient and there is no dead weight there, and everyone is really working to the full capacity, then you might be producing, in terms of how much value you produce, you might be producing 5 times more than another company, another position that is like similar responsibilities, but just worse organized. But it's so hard to make a case. That's also why salary negotiations are so difficult. Yeah. So that's also why I usually, if you want to get a raise, I usually advise people to just make so do it like by increments. So ask your manager, okay, if I want to get a raise of $1,000 per month, what do I have to learn extra, and how can we plan for it? Because like you don't compare with others, because it's so hard to compare the value you produce. But if you like ask, okay, how can I, given where I am, how I can add like 1,000 per month on top of it, or 5,000, whatever, then it might be like, and you can make a planning for it, then you might make your case.
So I appreciate the answer, but like, so that's basically between the middle management and the individual contributors, right? But when it comes to the layoffs, it's the upper management, it just says, okay, we want to have this much of revenue increase, so we want 100 million more, so reduce 100 million worth of people. They don't look at, they don't know the individual contributors' role or something, and they just want to remove particular projects or particular individuals. So they, like in Facebook's example, they said, okay, remove 2 people from each team. That's what they convey to the directors, right? So then it doesn't matter, like, you know, talking to your superior or senior officer or whatever, and then how much value that particular BU gives to the company. How do we determine that? Is there some way that we can?
Yeah, you know, it's like also like in organizations like this, sometimes like how people perceive your value is a different story than what your value really is. That's also what I also teach people. Like in corporate life, you have to, like, the way you get promoted or the way you get safe during layoffs is like not as much related to like how much you actually do, but how much others think that you do. It's like
Exactly.
you do a little thing, you
Yeah.
just, you know, you write a line of code and then, hey, look at this is cool, you know. It's like people who play this game well, they are the people who are safe. So you have to learn the game.
That's true.
That's the same if you want to get promoted,
Yes.
right? If you know how to talk to people, so it seems you have a lot of value,
Yeah.
then it helps.
So this is the like solution. Actually, it's also in the book to the test. So once you do the test, you get a like manual and how to develop, how to self-navigate in the job market, and it's literally like put in this manual. But you know, you have to say something like, "Oh, look at this cool solution," and what it means. Look at me, you know.
Right.
Like this is how you do it. So it's just a game you have to play. There's a game everywhere. Like in startup world, there are games too. Like you have to know how to appear smart and innovative and like visionary, like authentic, right? What is authenticity? Like what some people somehow can appear authentic better than others, and this is so important. So it's like every tribe in the job market has their own rules of the game. You have to. That's also something you can learn from this test. So once you get your results, you also have a manual for like each one of these tribes and what are these written and unwritten rules and how to survive. Yeah. Okay, so I think that was enough for this talk. Thank you for the photos. And I will be here today until the end of the comedy night. So if anyone has some career-related questions, or if you have a resume you would like to go through, or a LinkedIn profile, or general questions about the navigation in the job market, or anything else I can help you with, then you can find me in the main hall, and I will help you. So don't hesitate to approach and ask questions. Thank you.
I think now we got everything covered. Like I said, this room is ours till 4. We'll to network with each other, or take off, whatever you wish. Remember, we're not here next month. We'll be at RSA.
Now, do you have access to?
We'll be back in May. I'm gonna stop before.